Bill O'Reilly equates Christianity to Islam here and suggests that the problem is just that jihadists are not following the tenets of Islam.
Now, to some extent, I can identify with President Obama on the religion issue. As a Roman Catholic, I was appalled when the priest pedophilia scandal broke. There's absolutely no excuse for the Catholic Church covering up many horrendous crimes. However, like Barack Obama, I do make the distinction between the faith and the people who abuse it.
The church is not the men who run it. The church is the abiding theology behind the doctrine of Jesus.
That's right, Jesus is the basis for Christianity. What he neglects to say is that Mohammed is likewise the basis for Islam. However, Mohammed was not a person of high moral character.
And the country is the abiding philosophy behind the Constitution. And I think if everybody understood that, you could put it in perspective.
But here's where I depart from the president. I went after the American leaders of the Catholic Church with a vengeance.
As we now know, the leaders of the Catholic Church in America covered up the sexual abuse. At least some of them did. It's my opinion that Cardinal Law in Boston could be arrested and charged with criminal negligence in the matter. Remember, Law admits transferring pedophile priests to places where they had continuing contact with children. Americans have a right to demand, and I mean demand, that their authorities take care of Cardinal Law, not the Pope. That American authorities take care of a man who aided and abetted the molestation of American children. We have the right, every American citizen, to demand that this cardinal law is removed. It's way beyond just Catholics. Law was eventually booted out of Boston, but then given a cushy job in Rome, another embarrassment for the Catholic Church. Barack Obama should do what I did, aggressively call out those who abuse the Muslim faith.
Pedophilia is very much against the teachings of Jesus. The problem is that Islamic terrorists are doing exactly the same things as Muhammad did, and that he taught good Muslims should do. Muhammad was a violent jihadist and terrorist
who commit atrocities under a religious banner. He should make defeating the jihad a central issue and stop trying to diminish Islamic terrorism by avoiding the simple truth. Radical Islam is a direct threat to the entire world. Whether they live in Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, or Africa, it is Islamic killers who are the central problem on the planet. President Obama should acknowledge that today and begin to correct his mistakes. And that's the memo.
O'Reilly is equating the moral basis of Christianity to that of Islam, but Muhammad waged jihad. He raided caravans to raise money to fund his warfare. He beheaded many people just because they would not submit to Islam and to terrorize others. He sanctioned sex slavery and kept sex slaves himself. He took one woman as his wife right after he had just beheaded her husband. He married a child bride. His deeds are still used today to justify these same actions by Muslims. Untold thousands of little girls are being raped by much older men today because Muhammad did it, so it is acceptable under Islamic law. This is a panel discussion by experts on Islam at the Joan Kroc Center in San Diego. One of the audience asked a panelist to confirm that Muhammad is the perfect example of morality to Muslims, and then questions her about Muhammad's behavior.
Now, the exemplar that Muhammad is for Muslims, it is mentioned throughout the tradition that Muhammad is the prophet, the vessel of revelation, and therefore a perfect ethical example that Muslims should follow.
So Muhammad is the perfect ethical example a Muslim should follow. Is that correct?
According to Muslims, yes.
Okay, will you yourself identify as Muslim?
Poetically Muslim.
But my thing is, can you repeat that again? Muhammad is the what?
It's the perfect example
Of
ethical behavior.
Of ethical behavior. Muhammad married a 6-year-old girl and had sex with her at 9. Now, I'm sorry, But I will not say another word, but just keep in mind what she just said about Muhammad. Thank you.
One more question back here. Yes, Muhammad had married at an old age a younger woman. The age of Aisha is debated among Muslims, whether they were 6 or 9 or 12. But you have to consider that also we're talking about an ancient time, that we can't measure those by morality and standards of our time.
She had just told us that Muhammad was the perfect example for Muslims. That would be for all time. And Muslims in many countries are still marrying 6 and 8-year-old girls because Muhammad did it. Just Google child bride Islam for more information. Bill Warner has written several small, simple, easy-to-read books about Islam. If you want to understand more about Islam, I would recommend his book, The Life of Muhammad.
Now, when you're studying Muhammad, you are studying Islam, because there are 91 verses in the Quran which state that every Muslim is to imitate Muhammad in everything that he does. Now, this is slightly the hard thing to understand when you're reading Muhammad, because when he practices jihad, this is what a Muslim should be doing. So it's sometimes hard to remember that all the things that he's doing are now the essence of Islam, but that is the case. For instance, if you hear a Muslim say, well, Islam was the first to give women their rights, since you've read about Muhammad, you know that, well, one of the rights they have is to be in a harem, and they also have the right to be a sex slave. So you see, when you study Muhammad, you come up with some very excellent arguments either for or against Islam. If you hear someone like Obama state that, well, Islamic State, ISIS, is not really Islam, you can say, well, you know, I've studied the life and traditions of Muhammad, and everything that Islamic State does, Muhammad did himself. So, now wait a minute, Mr. Obama. If Muhammad did it, it is Islamic, and therefore if Islamic State does the same thing, they're Islamic too. So it's a very powerful tool. Then we have that famous statement, starting with George Bush, Islam is the religion of peace. Well, if that's so, then Muhammad must have been a peaceful man. Well, it turns out when he went to Medina, the last 9 years of his life, he committed 100 separate acts of violent jihad.
For whatever reasons, people like Bill O'Reilly, Obama, and many others misrepresent what Islam is about to the public. It's the big lie, and this lie is literally killing us.